Hi everyone, before we begin I have to thank the sponsor of this video, Rebel Ramen. Rebel Ramen is made out of black beans, making it a healthier, higher protein alternative to normal ramen noodles, and it comes in two great flavors, spicy savory and miso. And Rebel Ramen has just launched their Kickstarter campaign where you can pre-order at a 15 to 40% discount, and a link to their Kickstarter is in the description down below. And I've also done my own review of Rebel Ramen, and again, link is in the description down below. So some of you may already know of the YouTube channel Golden Era Bookworm. It's a really small channel. A lot of his videos don't even break over 1,000 views. But he has had one video go viral. It caused a lot of discussion in the bodybuilding community here on YouTube. And in this video, Golden Era Bookworm claimed that eating 36 eggs per day is as good, if not better, than a steroid cycle. And the basis on which he's making this claim is that eggs supposedly contain testosterone, which is an anabolic hormone, and if you eat enough eggs, like 36 eggs per day, you will end up consuming a considerable amount of testosterone, which will raise your body's testosterone beyond what is physiologically normal, allowing you to make gains in muscle size and strength, which are comparable to running a cycle of steroids. And I, along with many other people, debunked this claim months ago when this video originally came out. But Golden Era Bookworm is refusing to admit he's wrong, and he's doubling down on his nonsense. He's since produced several more videos trying to back up his claim that eggs are as good as steroids, or they at least boost your testosterone. So once again, we're just going to debunk his claims. And to start things off, this 36 egg per day diet would never work because you can't digest 36 eggs in one day. You'd end up either having diarrhea or you'd poop out whole chunks of eggs, so you wouldn't absorb anything.
You can't digest 36 eggs a day. You can't process 36 eggs a day. Very shortly into this, I was out whole eggs. I mean, they were mixed up because I'd mix them up and stir them all up really good. I didn't have a blender, and I would drink them. Well, they got to the point where they came out the same exact state that they went in. They looked identical. You would go in the bathroom, take a dump, you'd shit out raw eggs.
A more realistic number might be 12 eggs per day. I've seen people do that without running into any digestive problems. So this whole idea just fails right from the start. The idea behind this is that eggs contain a very small amount of testosterone each, but if you eat 36 in one day, okay, well that will eventually accumulate, but you can't eat 36 eggs. You can only eat roughly a dozen. And guess what? You're not going to get anywhere near as much testosterone from eating a dozen eggs as you'd get from a typical steroid cycle.
So the research article that I recently covered was called Yolk Concentrations of Hormones in Glucose and Egg White and Egg Dimensions in Unincubated Chicken Eggs in relation to egg sex and hen body weight.
And second problem we run into here is that the study was analyzing hormone concentrations in fertilized eggs. The eggs you buy from the grocery store are not fertilized, which means their hormone concentrations would be much lower. So you're not even referencing research that is relevant to the argument you're making. The whole point of the study was to find a way to more accurately predict the sex of chicks before they hatch. Studies like these are being conducted by the egg industry because currently they have a huge problem with culling male chicks. Male chicks are useless to the egg industry, so they have to murder these male chicks, which is not only a big animal welfare issue since you're brutally murdering baby animals, but it's also a huge amount of waste. So the ultimate goal behind studies like these are to find ways to either predict or control the sex of chicks before they hatch to improve animal welfare standards and to prevent waste. And this brings up another big issue with this 36 egg per day diet. It is horrifically unethical. Not only are you supporting the mass murder of baby animals, but also egg-laying hens as well. These hens are horrifically mistreated, they're abused, neglected, and then eventually they're killed as well once they can't produce any more eggs. And you are supporting this cruelty for no good reason. Eggs do not increase your testosterone, so you are getting literally no benefit from eating them.
As you can see from the hormonal profile of the egg yolk, one can find testosterone, estrogen, androstenedione, progesterone, and dihydrotestosterone, albeit at very low levels. All of these measurements are in milligrams of yolk. So the measurements there are just picograms per milligram of yolk.
So he said it himself, these are extraordinarily small concentrations of these hormones, way too small to get any kind of anabolic benefit, and in a future video, he did some back-of-the-hand calculations, and he figured that one egg contains 190 nanograms of testosterone. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the metric system, 1 nanogram equals 1/1,000,000th of a milligram. And for reference, a typical bodybuilder would take roughly 500 milligrams of testosterone per week if they want to pack on muscle. So if you could somehow eat 36 fertilized eggs, which aren't even sold in stores, per day for an entire week, you would end up getting 47,880 nanograms of testosterone, which would equate to 0.04788 milligrams. So after eating 252 eggs in only 1 week, you'd end up getting 10,000 times less testosterone than what you'd get running a typical steroid cycle. And again, this is the testosterone you'd get from eating fertilized eggs. If you were to eat unfertilized eggs, which are the normal eggs found at the grocery store, you'd end up getting even less testosterone, which is effectively zero. So then, Golden Era Bookworm referenced this study suggesting that it is possible to absorb the testosterone found in eggs, and he's assuming this based on the findings of the study, but what he failed to point out is that the study was analyzing the absorption rate of an oral steroid drug, and the testosterone in this drug comes in doses of 40 milligrams of testosterone per pill, so one single pill of this drug contains 835 times more testosterone than what you'd get from eating 252 fertilized eggs, which, again, you can't even buy from the grocery store. Now, what's especially hilarious about this is that this guy fudged the numbers on his chart. He made some pretty big math errors. If one fertilized egg contains 190 nanograms of testosterone, and 1 nanogram is 1/1,000,000th of a milligram, that would mean multiplying that by 36, you'd only get just under 7 micrograms, and a microgram is 1/1000th of a milligram. But instead, he claimed this would add up to 7 milligrams, or 50 milligrams, if you were to consume 252 eggs in an entire week. So this guy doesn't even understand the metric system. His calculations were off by a factor of 1,000, and the scary thing is, this guy claims to be a research scientist with a PhD in biochemistry.
I'm a scientist by trade with a PhD in biochemistry. My focus in my current research are on human health and disease. And I was recently part of the European regulatory body of nanomaterials and their use in medicine. And what does this all mean? Well, it means that I'm pretty smart.
How can a guy with a PhD in biochemistry who's studying nanomaterials not understand how the metric system works? You honestly should lose your job over this video. But he did end up making a video correcting this mistake. He ended up correctly calculating that you'd end up getting roughly 50 micrograms of testosterone after eating 252 fertilized eggs in 1 week. He still failed to mention that you can't buy fertilized eggs from the grocery store, and he continued to make more absurd claims about how eggs affect your serum testosterone.
So these are incorrect statements I made earlier. It was just a miscalculation of the unit. I said milligrams. These are all actual microgram quantities that you get. The question is it much? Not really. But when we compare it to the circulating levels found in the human body, it gets interesting. So So when we look at the circulating levels of hormones, for example, in males, and we look at, for example, total testosterone, which is in the range of 240 to 950 nanograms per deciliter, we calculate that back to 5 liters of blood. You basically just multiply by 50. You would actually end up with 12 to 50 micrograms of testosterone. And because the 36 eggs a day diet would theoretically deliver 50 micrograms of testosterone, you could be doubling or even more, tripling or even quadrupling your testosterone levels.
That is completely impossible. You cannot double or quadruple your serum testosterone concentrations by consuming only 50 micrograms of testosterone per week. This study involved 61 men who were randomized into 5 groups, and they were all given a drug to suppress their endogenous hormone production, and they were given weekly testosterone injections of 25, 50, 125, 300, or 600 milligrams for 20 weeks. Now, the group that received 25 milligrams of testosterone per week had a mean serum testosterone concentration of only 253 nanograms per deciliter. The 50 milligram per week injection group had a mean serum testosterone concentration of 306 nanograms per deciliter, and the group receiving 125 milligram injections per week had a mean serum testosterone concentration of 542 nanograms per deciliter. So in order for the lowest testosterone group in that study to see a doubling of their testosterone concentrations, they would have had to have received an additional 100 milligrams of testosterone injections weekly. That's 2,000 times the amount of testosterone found in 252 fertilized eggs. So for Golden Era Bookworm to claim that 50 micrograms of testosterone would be enough to double or even quadruple your testosterone concentrations, that's just insane. That is completely 100% impossible. You would need at least 2,000 times that to double your serum testosterone concentrations. So you literally have no clue of what you're talking about. So even though this guy has a PhD in biochemistry and he studies nanomaterials in medicine, I'd recommend not taking his advice since he has no idea of what he's talking about, and eating any amount of eggs, let alone 36 eggs per day, is not only horrifically unethical, but it's also terrible for your health. Eating that much saturated fat and cholesterol is only going to increase your risk of chronic disease and early death, and it will not make you any more jacked. And if you like this video, maybe consider supporting me either through Patreon or my website. If you're looking for clothing, then check out the Vegan Gain store, and as always, keep making those vegan gains.
What a relief! When will this poisonous product cease? This is another public service announcement. You can believe it or you can doubt it. Let us begin now with the cow. The way it gets to your plate and how.